Hello, I'm Roger Phillips. You'll probably recognise my voice from BBC Radio Merseyside. But I'm here in Knowsley today to try to find out more about proposals that Knowsley Council says could solve problems like these.
Please watch this short video because it'll explain how you could improve the condition of yours and every other council tenant's home in Knowsley, if that's what you want.
As we'll hear, Knowsley Council is committed to providing quality homes at affordable rents for all its tenants. But despite its best efforts, you don't need me to tell you that the council finds it difficult to provide the quality of home you deserve in an area where a shifting population means there's a decrease in demand for housing and a lack of investment, which means there's just not enough money to plan for the future and provide the quality of home you expect. But the council believes there is a solution. There is a way to get money and resources to solve these problems. And the purpose of this video is to explain to you as a tenant and to your family how you can choose either to stay with the council and the financial problems it faces, or vote for changes which would unlock money unavailable to the council. These changes mean that council tenants' homes in Knowsley would get the repairs and improvements they need and are kept up to standard in the future. In the next few minutes, I'll be going over the background to this proposal so that you can decide, subject to government approval, whether or not the council goes ahead with something called transfer. And let's be quite clear, transfer does not mean that tenants have to move home.
At the moment, the council owns just over 18,000 homes and is responsible for their upkeep. The problem is it can't afford to continue to carry out the necessary repair and improvement programme the homes need, and it's only allowed to borrow a limited amount of money. Independent surveys show that over the next 5 years, over £200 million needs to be spent on repairing and improving tenants' homes. There's also a need to plan for future demand, and that means some demolition of properties which tenants don't want and quite frankly are not worth investing in. Because of the financial controls it faces, the council cannot match this level of investment.
This problem has been growing for a while, and the council realises that it can no longer provide the improvement programme needed. So like many other councils, it has sought a solution to these problems. But because the government wants to keep public borrowing down, it won't allow the council to raise all the money that it needs. What the government would allow, if a majority of the tenants vote for it and the government accepts it, is the transfer of the ownership and management of all council homes in Knowsley to Knowsley Housing Trust, a new, independent, not-for-profit local housing organisation to be set up by the council, tenants and others working together. Knowsley Housing Trust would be able to borrow the money to secure a more sustainable future for local homes. Knowsley Council has won a place on the government's list for councils that will be allowed to transfer. Even so, transfer can only happen if you vote for it. It's your choice.
So how would the new Housing Trust work and who would run it? Well, Knowsley Housing Trust would be set up and run by a board made up equally of a third tenants, a third councillors, and a third independent members with specialist skills. Tenant board members would have an equal say in decision making and would help to reflect tenants' wishes. The existing housing staff would also transfer to Knowsley Housing Trust, so you'd still be dealing with the same people as you do now, and that includes the wardens. The board would be responsible for planning and delivering local services, such as repairs and improvements, and would decide when and how homes would be improved. Shadow board members have already been appointed and are meeting to work through how Knowsley Housing Trust would operate and deliver the housing services, should tenants vote in favour of transfer. They're also listening to tenants' views, so tenants are helping to shape the trust policies for the future. And the tenant shadow board members will be subject to elections in the future, so that as the trust develops, all tenants in the borough will have the chance to have their say in the years ahead. Knowsley Housing Trust would not be run for profit. none of the board members would receive pay and there would be no dividends. So, no fat cats. So what kind of problems would Knowsley Housing Trust be taking on? Let's hear from John Wealthy, a tenant shadow board member.
I became a shadow board member to protect being a tenant and improve the situation for tenants. The tenants particularly want security, they want modernisation of the property and things that we've not been able to finance before. The tenants that I speak to, they want a firm landlord and they want a fair landlord, that they want their rights protecting as of now and with improvements.
Now, John's not the only person who knows about the problems. Here's what some other tenants think.
I'd like some reassurance about what's going to happen to the rents.
Will they do what they say?
I'd definitely like to see something done about this antisocial behaviour.
I have been a tenant for 33 years. I've never had central heating.
Double glazing would be nice.
I'd like to think that the repairs be carried out more quickly.
People want a nicer environment to bring up the families in.
As I said, an estimated £200 million is needed over the next 5 years to bring tenants' homes up to the standards tenants deserve. But the financial constraints upon the council means it just can't match this level of investment.
And remember, we're not just talking about repairs and improvements. The environment needs tackling as well. This means looking at future demand, parking, security, caretaking, communal areas, and antisocial behaviour.
I think it's time we found out why the council is in this situation and how it can be sorted out. Time for some answers.
Right, I'm with the council's Director of Housing, John McHale. John, we've been looking at the housing problems Knowsley Council currently faces. You're in charge. What's going on?
The main issue is one of money. We simply don't have enough money to carry out the repairs and improvements that's needed. The problem itself is not new, and in recent years we've had to close offices and depots. We've tried to be open and honest about the issues, and the problems are not unique to Knowsley. Our neighbours, St Helens and Liverpool, are also facing the same issues. Basically, over recent years our money has gone down year on year. We're now left in a situation where there simply isn't enough money to carry out all the work that we need to do.
But it's the council that gets the rents, so what's it being spent on?
We not only get the rent money, but we've also had substantial increases in rents over the years. These increases have been used to offset the reduction in government grants, and all councils have faced a similar problem over the last 20 years. And that, coupled with the restriction in borrowing that's imposed upon us, means that we've been limited in what we can do. Despite that, we have been able to do a number of major initiatives, such as the double glazing in Lickers Lane and the new kitchen and bathrooms throughout parts of Huyton. But the problem is it's limited. It's only limited to some areas and some tenants, and the council wants modern, high-quality homes and services for all its tenants. You've seen some of the properties that we have in this borough, and they are simply unacceptable. The council is looking to find new ways of getting the money that's so desperately needed.
So what's the solution?
The council have been looking at a number of options, and it believes that the best way forward to get the money to carry out all the work that's going to be needed is to transfer the homes. This will mean tenants voting and deciding whether it wants to transfer the management and the ownership to the Knowsley Housing Trust. The Trust is a brand new organisation that's been set up by the council that would be able to borrow money to improve the homes and keep rents affordable.
Look, John, some people say this is nothing other than privatisation.
Roger, this is not privatisation. This is about community ownership. Knowsley Housing Trust is a not-for-profit organisation. That means there's no profits, there are no dividends, there are no shareholders. Even board members will not be paid. Every penny will be spent on improving the homes and the environment.
Look, John, shouldn't you be bringing pressure on the government to sort this out?
Having looked at all the options, we can find no evidence whereby the government would allow the council to borrow the money it needs. We therefore have to face reality and ask ourselves what's best for Knowsley. The council believes transfer is the solution to secure the long-term future for its homes. But at the end of the day, it's not up to us. It's up to the tenants to decide what they want.
So the council clearly believes that transfer is the best solution. Well, I'm going to speak to Janet Hale of Knowsley Housing Trust to find out what she thinks the benefits of transfer are. Hello, Janet.
Hello, Roger.
Janet, I've been talking to a lot of the tenants, and they think it's too good to be true, this whole thing. There's got to be a catch somewhere, and the big one is rents. They think rents will go up because, well, if you're going to borrow a lot of money, which you'll have to do, surely the only way you'll get it back is by putting the rents up.
Well, the fact is, Roger, rents would stay affordable and would be very similar to council rents. For the first 5 years, tenants would get a rent guarantee, limiting annual rent rises to no more than 1% plus inflation. Even after the guarantee ended, rents wouldn't go shooting up. This is because the government wants a level playing field for rents in the social sector in the next 10 years. So tenants in Knowsley would pay very similar rents in the future, whether the homes stay with the council or transfer to Knowsley Housing Trust. Yes, Knowsley Housing Trust would borrow money for improvements, but repaying this money has been planned for in a 30-year business plan. This means tenants' rents would stay affordable year after year after year.
You see, many of the tenants that I've been speaking to, Janet, feel very secure with the council, and in particular they're worried about what would happen to their rights if they transfer to the trust.
Yes, I understand that. But existing tenants' rights and entitlements would be very similar with the trust. For example, transferring tenants would keep the right to buy through a process known as the preserved right to buy. They would keep the right to pass on their home to members of their family, the right to exchange, the right to take in lodgers, and many of the other rights that they enjoy. Tenants would lose two rights if the transfer goes ahead: the right to manage and the rent to mortgage scheme. But only one tenant has ever taken up the rent to mortgage scheme. The new Phoenix Tenant Management Organisation would continue to exist and to manage its homes on behalf of the trust. I want to stress that tenants' entitlements to all benefits, including housing benefit, wouldn't be affected. What's also interesting is that tenants have been telling us what they want from Knowsley Housing Trust: a fair landlord with the same rights as now, but also a firm landlord, one who will tackle antisocial behaviour and neighbour nuisance. We agree, and we will spell these commitments out in our proposals.
Well, that sounds pretty reassuring, but what guarantees are there? I'm off now to speak to Councillor Brian O'Hare, who's the housing portfolio holder for the council, to find out. Brian, how can the council guarantee that Knowsley Housing Trust will carry out its promises?
Knowsley's Housing Trust would make a legally binding agreement with Knowsley Council. If the Housing Trust did not keep its promises, the council could take him to court. And remember, it's the tenants that make up a third of the trust board. I'm certain they would want to make sure that Knowsley Housing Trust kept to its promises. The trust would be a not-for-profit housing organisation. Rent increases would be known in advance, and any surplus cash would be ploughed back into repairing, improving homes and improving the quality of life for everyone in Knowsley. But it would also have a massive effect for everyone in the borough, because this is probably the biggest ever regeneration that Knowsley has ever seen. As well as the council, the government's housing regulator, the Housing Corporation, would monitor the Knowsley Housing Trust to make sure high performance standards are met. The council believes that transferring the ownership and management of the council's homes to the Housing Trust is the best way to give existing tenants and future tenants the high standard of accommodation they deserve.
Over 120 councils throughout the country have already transferred. I'm off now to visit Dane Housing in Congleton and to speak to Dorothy Barnett and Chris Hargreaves to find out how transfer has worked for them.
Since the transfer, we have made improvements to the property on central heating, double glazed windows, and following on there will be new kitchens and bathrooms.
Before transfer, the worry was that rents would go up very steeply. But since the transfer has gone through and 3 years down the line, rents have stayed low.
Since the transfer, and particularly the tenants sitting on the board, yes, they do have a bigger say.
We've got the right to buy, we've got housing benefits are stay the same, we've got the right to pass on to our relatives,
and there's no need to worry at all. No need to worry.
Knowsley Housing Trust believes that there are decent, attractive houses in Knowsley which make good homes. They just need money spending on them. Knowsley Housing Trust would carry out these improvements.
So that you can make your choice, the council is making sure you have all the facts. It has to do that by law, which means that it's producing newspapers like this, Your Home, Looking to the Future. Your formal consultation document explains the full terms of the transfer proposals and what it means to you. It's important that you read this document. As tenants, you'll continue to receive information right up until the time when you'll make your decision in a ballot. The council believes Knowsley Housing Trust is the way forward. It's an independent organisation which will be legally bound to keep to its promises. Let's look at the key facts. Some people think that the transfer is a foregone conclusion. It isn't. It can only happen if you vote for it. You'll get your ballot paper for a postal ballot, and then it's your choice. It's up to you to decide. The ballot will be run by Electoral Reform Services, which is independent of the council and Knowsley Housing Trust. If people vote no, then it won't happen. If people vote yes, then it would happen. So let's be absolutely clear about this. The transfer can only happen if the majority of tenants voting vote yes. And there are over 22,000 council tenants who will have their say. So use your vote. Don't waste it. Think about it. What do you want?
Thanks for watching.